Hi, everyone. We'll just give it a couple of minutes because there's still quite a few joining. So just bear with us for a minute or two and then we'll make a start. Okay, should we make a start then? Welcome everybody to this DWP Facebook Live event. I think we all know why we're here. I'm Fran Heathcote, I'm the president at PCS, and joining me tonight will be your group president, Martin Cavanagh, and our general secretary, Mark Serwotka. I want to give a special welcome to Richard, our interpreter, who always does a sterling job keeping up with all of us speaking and making sure that the event is as accessible as possible. The way we're going to do it, a bit like normal, I'll hand over in a minute to the General Secretary. He will give you a bit of a scene setter in terms of everything that's going on, then hand over to Martin, who will put that very much into a DWP context. We'll then open it up for questions, comments, contributions, and then obviously invite our two speakers to come back on those as the meeting goes ahead. We're not going to run for hours. We'll between an hour and a half, because I appreciate everybody's had a long day and you're all very, very busy doing lots of good work. So that's great. If you have questions, comments, contributions, and you have my personal details, don't send them to me because I won't get them. Put them into the chat. The admins will post in the chat which admin is taking questions at any particular time throughout the call, and they will field the questions through to me, and I'll get through as many of those as I can. But as I say, a lot of you, looking at the names, a lot of you have got my contact details, but if you send them directly to me, I won't receive them. So it's best to send them via the admins in the chat, and we'll make sure we have plenty of time for your questions, comments and contributions. As I say, I think we all know why we're here. We are just about to start what is probably the most important and significant ballot for us that we've had, and you only have to turn on the news to see some of the horror stories that are unfolding in terms of the government and the new Prime Minister, to recognise that we're going to have a very tough period ahead. And none of this is going to be straightforward, and what's required of all of us is to do everything we can to make sure we're in a position to send the strongest response possible. So I'm going to hand over now to Mark Serwotka, our General Secretary. Mark, as I say, will give you some background to everything that's happening, and we'll go from there. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Fran. And first of all, can I say a big thank you to everyone who's joined us on the call. We had a similar event like this last night in HMRC where we had hundreds of people join us. So thank you for giving up your time. Thanks very much for everything that people are doing in relation to the ballot. What I wanted to do, Fran, is obviously the main purpose of tonight is give people a brief update where we are. So we're Martin from a DWP group perspective, and then obviously we want to be able to answer any questions that people have. But what I wanted to do really is to set out not just why this is the most important ballot that we will ever have, but just to be clear with everyone, the efforts we've gone to try to get the government and the civil service to engage with us, and why, frankly, it is absolutely clear as we meet here tonight that unless we deliver a massive yes vote in DWP, and unless you get way past the 50% threshold, then what we face will be the toughest winter that we have ever experienced in the civil service because of what the government is currently planning. Therefore, I can tell people straight away that yesterday I met the new Paymaster General and Minister for the Cabinet Office, who's been appointed by Liz Truss, a chap called Edward Agar. And today I met a woman called Fiona Ryland, who has been appointed as the new Chief People Officer for the whole of the civil service. And I spent quite a lot of time in both meetings. Today was a meeting just with myself. Yesterday was with the General Secretaries of the FDA in Prospect, making it sure that the very most senior civil servants in sort of the Cabinet Office, HR, and particularly the Tory Minister, understood the gravity of the crisis that we face, the industrial action that we are confident members will vote for, and the significance that will mean for government and for the people of this country, and why even at this last hour, they should do the right thing and instruct their officials to immediately open negotiations. And the word I mean, negotiations, not an engagement forum or a listening forum. We want to negotiate with civil servants who have the power to make decisions to improve your pay, to help deal with the cost of living crisis, stop the 91,000 job cuts, stop cuts in your terms and conditions and redundancy scheme, and stop the pensions robbery. I have to say that as we meet here tonight, there is no indication whatsoever from either the senior civil service or the government that that is their intention. In fact, the opposite is the case. As we plan for this ballot, we know from seeing leaked notes of meetings that they are planning their response, whether it is legal, whether it is industrial, to try and circumvent the industrial action that they think we might take. They are planning not to negotiate a settlement of the dispute, but to what they're going to do if we win the ballot. And in the first instance, they are planning to hope that we don't win the ballot and to make it as difficult as possible, excuse me a sec, for our reps and our members to communicate, to have meetings, and to get members to participate in the ballot. So we need to be clear, I think, that the employer's approach is to do everything they can, not to persuade people to vote no. They know they haven't got a chance of persuading people to vote no, is they hope that people will not vote. And they'll do everything they can to make that as difficult as possible because they don't want us to get a legal mandate. If we do get a legal mandate, they know that we have a strategy and I believe the power to force the government to make concessions, because what we are planning is not a campaign of protest, but a campaign of hard-hitting industrial action that is designed to inflict the maximum pressure on the government itself. So everything is to play for. And what is an absolute truism is if we don't win the ballots, what they plan is going to happen. If we do win the ballots, we can immediately go into talks knowing that they will have to take us more seriously than they have to up to now. And if we have to take the industrial action, knowing that we've got massive support from members in a way that we can win. So let me share with you what we made clear to the Minister yesterday. We shared with the Minister the survey that we recently did of PCS members. And can I thank anyone who's on the call from DWP who responded to the survey or encouraged members to respond to the survey. But we pointed out that in a very high response, 35% of members responding said they had to skip meals because they cannot afford to buy food. 9% are claiming benefits because their pay is so low. In other words, they are the working poor. And as we pointed out to the Minister, these people work for the government, yet they are the working poor. 8% have recently used a food bank. And in some cases, we saw personal testimonies, including people from DWP, telling us they are trying to get out for their mental health and well-being, that the stress of working in the civil service under the pressure put on us with job cuts, office closures, cost of living crisis is too much to bear. In fact, we even had a significant proportion of members telling us that they have either gone sick or made an excuse not to go to work because they could not afford to go to work to either put the petrol in their car or the public transport costs. So I made clear to the Minister yesterday, not just that the survey told its own story, but in someone who has been in or around the civil service now for 40 years, 21 years working in the civil service and 20 as General Secretary, they should be on no uncertain terms. This is the worst it has ever been. This is a crisis of monumental proportions. And actually what they have at the moment are staff who in many cases are desperate, who are angry, who are demoralized, but are determined that something is done about it. We made it clear to the Minister that we're fed up of being clapped during the pandemic and told that we're heroes for, in your case, delivering millions of cases of universal credit, or in HMRC's case, delivering the furlough scheme, to be now told that in the week that Liz Truss, as the new Prime Minister, has made it clear she intends to lift the cap on bankers' bonuses. So let's be clear what that means. People earning millions will have no cap on getting millions more in bonuses. Yet for you, she's asking you to accept the single biggest cut in your living standards there has ever been in the civil service. If we do not win our campaign, you will have a minimum of a 10% cut in your living standards this year. That is unprecedented. And that is with inflation currently between 10 and 13%, depending on the index that is used. Some forecasters are telling us inflation is going up to 18%. We know with Bank of England interest rises, mortgages are rising. We know that people with rents are rising, bills are rising. And even though the government has capped the energy prices to £2,500 per household, that is still more than double what they were less than a year ago. So what we know is just on pay alone, this is unsustainable, and this is a crisis. It's a crisis of poverty, demoralization, and not just for us in DWP or the civil service, but our colleagues elsewhere, literally a crisis where people cannot, not just have holidays, but people currently are skipping meals, cannot feed their kids, and many are in a pit of despair. When you add to that the Minister yesterday did not indicate any change of direction of travel on pensions, which means that they are still insisting that out of your pay packet every month, 2% comes out that you shouldn't pay towards your pension. That is going to continue. They now have the cheek to tell us they can't talk to us about it because we're taking them to court. Well, our court case has been long in the running, but our attempt to get negotiations has been in place now for over 3 years. So it's a pathetic excuse. He also yesterday made it clear that the government's plans to cut 91,000 jobs in now 2.5 years remains in place. Your department, like every other, will be expected to contribute its bit. And at the same time, we received a second letter in a month yesterday from the Cabinet Office confirming that their desire is to open negotiations on the redundancy scheme with a view to reinstating cuts of 33%. Now, last night in the HMRC meeting, a member asked the question, well, won't they make the job cuts through natural wastage? And our answer to that, and I'll just say it here now, Fran, is twofold. Even if they could, that is a disaster for those left behind because people are stressed, overworked, and need more staff now, not 1 in 5 less. But who believes that natural wastage will deliver their cuts? And if they believed it, why do they want to cut 33% of your redundancy entitlement if they don't actually plan to make huge cuts and do it on the cheap? Taken together, 10% cut in living standards minimum, 2% overpayment of pensions, 33% cut in your redundancy terms, and 1 job in 5 to go in now 2.5 years is unprecedented in the history of the civil service. We've seen some of these things before, not all of them. We've never seen them at the same time. At the same time as that, Liz Truss is indicating she wants to renew her attack on unions like ours by attacking your reps, removing their facility time even more, and probably unleashing a new round of ballot laws to try to make it even harder to get lawful ballots. Now, I set all that out, Fran, because yesterday, whilst the Minister did say he was shocked at the survey and has asked me to send him the results of the survey, and I can confirm that a letter is going first thing in the morning. It's now been drafted to set out in very great detail what the survey says. We are left under no illusion that nothing is going to change from their perspective unless and until we can win the ballots. And that's really what I wanted to finish on, Fran, is that we've tried everything and we will continue to try everything Over 6,000 members responded to the e-action we've launched to get in touch with Liz Truss. That's the most people in one day that have ever responded immediately to an e-action. We have got meetings set up at the Labour Party conference next week. We've got fringe meetings at the TUC. We're meeting our colleagues. We're lobbying MPs. We will continue to meet ministers and civil servants. Please take for granted that all of that's going to continue. We will continue with our legal challenge on the pension scheme. If needs be, we will look again at a legal challenge on the redundancy scheme. Everything we can do, we will carry on doing. But we know in our heart of hearts, there is one thing that can make the most significant difference, and that is winning the ballot. And therefore, what I want to urge people tonight in the questions and to make sure that people understand is that this ballot is different to how we've done it before. We are balloting the whole of our membership, but breaking the results down by employer. So put bluntly, if in the DWP group, you do not get over 50% turnout, the DWP group cannot participate in any industrial action over this campaign. So every single vote in the DWP group matters. It will be a tragedy for the union if we try to progress a national campaign and our biggest group, containing members who are so critical to the delivery of frontline services, was not part of that. So we did 45% in the consultative ballot. We know, therefore, we've got to get 5% more. I know people have worked hard. I know that people are arranging leafleting sessions. You have meetings most evenings. But we've got to now say to ourselves, in the days before the ballot starts on Monday and the 6 weeks of the ballot period, we need every office to try and have a meeting, either physical or online or both. We need everyone to try and do leafleting. We need everyone to talk to colleagues. We need everyone to chase up personal contact details, because that is the way we can contact people during the dispute. And we need everyone to vote, and to vote yes. If you deliver that, and we deliver that in HMRC and the rest of the union, and we're balloting in 216 different departments and employers, I want to make it clear to members, and this question came up last night, that will give us a mandate, firstly, to demand talks, but most importantly, to plan action that can win. And the NEC, in seeking the mandate and the ballot question members are being asked, is not about protesting. It is not about an occasional one-day strike. It is about a strategy that can make them realise how important we are. So we are planning for sustained targeted action in the areas that will hurt them every bit as much as a train driver going on strike, an RNT member, or a postal woman or man going on strike. We have members in our union who deliver critical services that have an instant impact if they don't go to work. We will support those members financially, paying strike pay, using the union strike fund, and seeking to raise more money to sustain it. But we also know that we will have to have strikes involving everyone. Those actions, by definition, will be unpaid. And we are promising members that any use of all member action will be very focused and designed to maximise its effect. In other words, if we are considering any one-day or two-day strikes, we would want to coordinate them with other unions so that the effect of a one-day strike is not just a civil service one, but is seen to be across the public sector or with other key unions in transport, health, local government, or education. In other words, I hope people can see what we're saying, that any limited stoppages involving everyone would be used to the maximum effect to build political pressure on the government, which is why we're talking to colleagues in all other unions as we speak. But action in our own union is designed to be sustained and to make them realise that if 7 French workers going sick caused 24-hour queues at Dover and on the motorway, what would happen if 1,000 PCS members went on strike? What will happen if members go on strike for a sustained period in the courts, in the passport offices, in the DVLA, in the transport sector, and in parts of DWP and HMRC where we know we can have an instant effect? I make that point, Fran, because many members are saying they know they can't afford to strike and they're worried. What we are saying to those members tonight is do not vote for action because you're afraid you can't afford it. Because if we don't have action, the truth is you will never be able to afford the type of life you deserve for you and your family. What the government plans will mean low pay, job insecurity, and pensions robbery will carry on for years. But if you vote for a strike, we will have the means to force the government to make concessions. And our promise to members is we know how hard hit members are, which is why the action we take will either be financially supported where it's sustained or designed to maximise the impact of any loss of pay you have so that we can win. Final point, Fran, I just wanted to make is that from what I've said, and I'm sure what Martin's going to say in a DWP context, I know that everybody knows how serious this is. I know that we've got a new Prime Minister who is coming up with some pretty right-wing ideology. But to get that stuff through, they are dependent on people not doing anything. Look at the effect the RMT are having, college lecturers are having, postal workers are having, our colleagues in Unite who are winning disputes, in some case winning pay rises of 23%, where they've taken action, forcing employers to give in. We're in talks with all of those unions, and I can tell you that as our ballot starts, we know there will be ballots taking place in every education union, in local government unions, in health unions, the fire brigades union, as well as in the private sector, over the period we're balloting and immediately after. So the final point that I will stress to people is things would be bad enough if we didn't win the ballot and the government did to us what they're planning to do. But they would be even worse if other unions had got mandates and were taking action and forcing concessions out to the government, and we were not able to do that. Because what that would mean is any defeat or pressure on the government means that those gains would go to other workers in the public sector. And whilst I'm sure we all hope those workers make those gains, we can't be the ones left out. So it's in our hands. And I hope people will accept tonight we're doing everything we can to shift their position. But in reality, the only thing that will shift their position if they think we can take strike action. So thanks for everything that people have done. I know people are working hard, but every vote counts. And let's make sure on the 7th of November, the DWP group has smashed the threshold with a huge yes vote so that we can go to the management and the Treasury and the government and say, now they better make concessions or they're going to have to put up with the consequences. Thanks, Fran.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Thanks so much for that. That's obviously given us a really good background of everything that's happening. Before I bring Martin in, there are a number of solidarity shout-outs and they're very popular. And if you would like to shout out from your branch, just send me a message through. So Tom Westgarth from DWP Tyneside, Northumbria, DWP North Staffs in Stoke, which includes 150 plus staff who are at risk at Hanley Service Centre, and that message is from Pete Rofe. DWP Glasgow, Solidarity One and All from Charlie Liddle, Solidarity from Dundee Pension Centre, Sabine, DWP Wirral, Andy Downey, Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway, Jerry Mooney, West Wales branch, Vote Yes, Lee McCartney, DWP Essex, Mary Lou, South Shields Job Centre, Diane Richardson, and Social Security Scotland, Maureen Sweeney. And just before I bring Martin in, I'm going to read this out from Karen Bowman, who says, nobody is going to stop me from voting. So that's a really positive message, Karen. Thank you for that. And let's hope everybody else feels exactly the same. Okay, so without any further ado, I'll hand over to your group president, Martin Cavanagh, and Martin will put all of this into the context of the DWP. So over to you, Martin.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Fran, and good evening, everyone. And I just want to reiterate the points that Fran and Mark have made in terms of thanking you all for giving up your time tonight to attend what I believe is one of the most important, if not the most important, events that we've had for quite some time in our group. And I don't say that to be deliberately provocative. I say that because the absolutely overwhelming evidence that we have right now from our members is that everyone gets and understands the extreme pressure that people are feeling, both from an economic perspective, from a job perspective, but also real worries and concerns about your futures. And I just want to start off by really thanking everyone for the incredible number, hundreds, literally hundreds of testimonies that have been sent in directly from members of DWP to the union, telling us some very personal, but often very harrowing stories about what the cost of living crisis and the ongoing plight of the economic failures of this government and successive governments is having on you and your families. And I want to thank you for doing that, because it can't be easy and never can be easy. And I certainly, on behalf of the group, do not underestimate what a brave thing it is for you to put very personal details to your union to explain how the current crisis is biting really hard on you and your loved ones. And I'm not going to go into chapter and verse about those testimonies, but what I will say is this. it is very, very clear to us, not just from the survey results that Mark has just read out, but also from these testimonies that we received in recent weeks, very clear to us that more of you now are having to claim the benefits that you administer. More of you are having to borrow, including high interest borrowing payday loans, not for luxuries like holidays or cars, but for necessities like putting food on the table, paying your rent or mortgage, or paying your bills. And one story in particular that really did highlight to me from the testimonies that received was a single parent with 2 children who'd written in to say that they borrowed money from a payday loan company a few weeks ago. Not a lot of money, less than £100, so they could put food on the table for them and their children. And 7 weeks later, having not been able to keep up with the payments, they now owe in excess of £550. That is an absolute travesty in society anyway. But for a worker of the government department that is there to look after and help some of the most vulnerable in society, I would hope that you all share our view that that is an indictment on this Tory government, it's an indictment on the department and anyone else responsible for the decision-making process that allows civil servants, along with other public sector and key workers, to have such an economic crisis placed upon themselves. This is, without any doubt, the most difficult period that our members have faced. And the context for our members, of course, is that we see it from both sides of the counter, if you like. Our members are also telling us that the impact of the difficulty or the impossibility of keeping your heads above the economic waterline is impacting on your ability to do the job. Mark highlighted earlier on about people taking time off sick rather than going into work, and the devastating impact that is having and will continue to have on our services. But fuel poverty, especially right now, is high on the list of the public narrative. And there's a reason for that. Because when members who work for DWP are writing in to tell us that even though the cost of travel to and from the workplace is going up much more than the 2% pay that's been imposed by our department on the majority of our members this year, it will still be better option for them during the winter months to come in 5 days a week, because they won't be able to turn on the heating. They won't be able to put money in the electric meter so that they can work from home and have that electricity storage moving through the day to allow them to work from home. That has to be something that we find unacceptable. And so the message that I would give on behalf of the DWP group, exactly the same as the message that Mark has just given on behalf of the National Union, that if we are ever going to do anything about making the DWP, the Treasury and this abhorrent government sit up and take notice, as the biggest group of this union, with the biggest membership and the group that delivers genuine welfare benefits to those who are the most needy, if we don't understand now that we have to fight back and we need to join those other workers fighting back, then it begs the question, when is the circumstance and the time going to be right? And I just want to move on next to a really important issue for our members in DWP, and it is linked to the job cuts that Mark's talked about. Because it is inconceivable, isn't it, that a government department like ours, the largest government department, is going to be exempt from any swathing cuts to the wider civil service. So if the government does indeed come out with 91,000 or whatever the figure may be, job cuts in the near future, there is no way on earth the DWP are going to be allowed not to have to take their hit. So whether that is a 20 or a 30 or a 40% cut, can you, who work in DWP now, imagine the job that you will be left behind with? Imagine the pressure of work that you will be placed under with a reduction of staffing to that level. I don't believe there's a single person anywhere in the department, including in senior management grades, who believe that we could possibly deliver a level of cut such as that and still provide the absolutely essential services that our members do provide. And that is something that we should all be very, very proud of in our department. Because in recent weeks and months, after they've announced over 50 office closures, 10 of them which are job centres, when the response from our members is not only a worry about their own livelihoods and their own futures and a concern for their jobs and their job security, but our members are also extremely vocal about the devastating impact that's going to have on communities and on service provision. That is a testimony to you. It's a testimony to our wider membership about how we see our place in that wider society. And of course, during the pandemic, it was there for all to see, because we were lauded and applauded alongside other key workers on a weekly basis. But members of DWP also had glowing tributes from the then Prime Minister, from our Minister, from various politicians about being the fourth emergency service, about being heroes, about being absolutely critical to the economic recovery. Because if it hadn't been for our members paying out those record levels of benefits, if it hadn't been for our members looking after pensioners and those with childcare provision, if it wasn't for our members helping and giving advice to the sick and disabled, the economic impact of the pandemic would have been even greater than was already felt. Now, on the one hand, you've been lauded and applauded, but now when it comes to the reward strategy, the DWP, alongside other government departments and the UK government, have decided that their ideology is way, way above their priority order than your livelihoods and your futures. And so I would say this, comrades, that we next week, from Monday onwards, have to do absolutely everything we possibly can, leave no stone unturned, as the biggest group of the union, to drive out every last vote in this ballot, to tell the department, to tell the government that we understand the impact that the economic crisis is having on our members. We understand the impact that the economic crisis is having on those who we provide those vital services for. Well, we also understand that if they get their way and they decimate our members' jobs, and they decimate the services that we provide, the long-term impact on this country will be one that takes us back to pre-Second World War standards of living in the UK. None of us should ever have to be in a position whereby we have to take on such a fight and battle. But it's not too dramatic to say that is the fight and the battle that we are currently in. So I will finish with these comments, that whether it's those 800 members, soon to be over 1,000 members in DWP, that are already facing redundancy because their office is closing, whether it's the tens of thousands of our members who are sitting in offices that very soon might be earmarked for closure, whether it's our workers in job centres that continue to deal with face-to-face services to the public and more calls on your time and on your commitment being placed upon you, whether it's our service centre staff who provide much needed support, financial support in terms of benefit payments, but other support to pensioners, child carers, etc. Or whether it's any other member of staff in the DWP, whether it's the cost of living crisis, the real terms 10% plus pay cut that has been imposed upon you, the theft, and it is a theft, of the pension contributions that you are continually having to overpay, or whether it's the job insecurity or this absolutely despicable threat to reduce your redundancy terms is the thing that makes you want to vote. Any of them individually should be enough, but collectively they have to be. And so I am very confident that the hundreds and hundreds of members who've attended pay meetings with GC speakers in the past 3 or 4 weeks understand the importance of this ballot. They understand the importance of the fight that we have, and they are ready for that fight. And I just want to echo the point that Mark made, that those of you who are worried about the consequence of taking strike action, about whether or not you can afford to take strike action, yes, the easy response is, can you afford not to in such a time as this? But on behalf of the Group Executive Committee, I give you my assurance that we will continue engaging and consulting with the National Union about identifying and highlighting those areas of DWP that we can target to take out, that will have maximum impact on the department and on the government, and that we can therefore play our full and active part. We, as the biggest group, should aspire to that. We have to aspire to that, and we will aspire to that. So I want to thank you again for everything that you've been doing in the last few weeks, building for this ballot. Push, and push that bit more. Let's absolutely smash through that 50% threshold. Let's win the strategy. Let's win our demands. Let's win the pay that you deserve. Let's win the standard of living that you deserve. Let's win the job security that you deserve, and send a clear, unequivocal message to everyone that needs to listen that we've had enough of being scapegoated. We've had enough of being the ones who have to pay all the time while others cream from the top. You can record in wider business record profits and dividends to shareholders. Senior civil servants can pay themselves more money than lower paid civil servants. Enough is enough. We are going to be part of the fight back. Thanks very much for your solidarity, and please keep sending in your testimonies, because we will use them to good effect, and we will present them in the not too distant future to government ministers, and they will sit up and take notice. But they will sit up and take notice that bit more when you give us your mandate for action, and we can use that to good effect. So thanks very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Martin. So obviously that's really helpful in terms of setting the context in the DWP and why this is such an important struggle for us and our members. There is just one lone little solidarity shout out that didn't come in until after I've read the previous ones, and that's Bev Laidlaw, DWP Sheffield, sending solidarity. So thanks for that, Bev. Okay, so as I say, there are lots and lots of questions coming in on a range of topics. What I'll try and do is group them together so that the speakers can answer them in batches, really, in terms of the ones that are along similar lines. And there are a lot of questions here about strike pay. And I think, Mark, it might be worth boxing this off first off, and you coming in on this, but I'll read you out a couple and you'll get a flavour of what people are saying. So Suzanne Smith says, is there trade union funding to support people who take strike action? If so, when would this kick in? As I'm sure you can appreciate, the cost of living question will come to mind when making the decision to support strike action. And Suzanne also says, and what steps are being considered before we move to strike action? And also asks, how many days does strike action involve? So obviously, you know, that's a variation on a theme. There's lots of questions along those lines with people, you know, recognising that they are struggling to make ends meet. Kevin Rogers says, could I suggest that PCS use some of the 70 million in net assets reported in 2021 to support members with a £5 reduction in subscriptions? That £5 a month could be the difference between getting to work in petrol, like you mentioned. It would also attract new members, as they would see the membership cost reduction as being affordable, giving strength in numbers to future ballots. So something else along the same theme there about the cost and what it costs people. I think that's probably a flavour of the ones on strike. The others are all very similar. So Mark, if you would like to come back and cover those off, and then we'll go back and take some of the other questions. Can we unmute Mark, please? Is one of the admins able to unmute Mark, please?
Yeah.
There we are. No, he's back on mute again. Right, now he's off.
I'm off. Brilliant. Right. Thanks very much. And thanks to Suzanne and Kevin then for those questions. And obviously there's been quite a few coming in. So on the question of reducing subscriptions, let's just take that one head on. The way to improve people's cost of living is to force the employer to pay us more. It isn't by reducing the income to the union, which already has some of the lowest subscription rates out there. So I understand how tough it is for people, but obviously all the money that the union gets through subscriptions is used in order to ensure that the union runs and provides the services that it does. So what we need to do here is not so much focus, I think, on the union, is focus it on the employer. And what we don't want is £5 a month for people. We want a 10% pay rise for everyone across the board and a minimum wage of £15 an hour. And to do that, the union needs to force the employer to cough up. On Suzanne's question, I'm glad Suzanne's questions come up. And obviously I covered this a little bit in the lead off. So we're in a catch-22, aren't we? And I'm just going to use an anecdote of a members' meeting that I attended to make the point that A member in a very big meeting said what we should have is a 2-week strike, everybody out, that'll bring the government to its knees. And the whole room erupted and everybody clapped. And then when they stopped clapping, the same member said, the problem is we all know we can't afford to have a 2-week all-out strike. And that's what we have to deal with, isn't it? We all know that the way to pressure the employers to withdraw our labour, we also know that representing some of the lowest paid workers in the UK, that's difficult for people. Now, we're not alone in this. The RMT are currently having strikes, and they have members involved in those strikes that are on as low pay as some of our members. Postal workers are having strikes. We know that there is low pay in the postal industry. So we know that some of the workers that the GMB and Unite are having on strikes in local government, many of those are on the minimum wage. So this is a perennial problem. And the employers obviously always dine out on the fact that if you can't afford to go on strike, they just keep on getting away with keeping us poor all of the time. That said, we're very conscious that to win, we have to do enough to force them to concede, but that we have to be conscious about the low pay position of our members themselves. And that's why what we're saying is where we ask members to come out for sustained periods of strike action, what I'm going to call targeted action, the union will financially support those members. And to do that, we will use our current £3 million in the union strike fund, and we will seek to raise further money in the course of the next few weeks and months. So any member asked to take sustained action on behalf of everyone will get financial support from the union. That's only right. It also follows, though, that where we ask all members to come out on strike, we cannot pay strike pay. No union in the UK, to my knowledge, does that because obviously it couldn't afford to pay strike pay for hundreds of thousands of people. And that's why unpaid action, and there will need to be some unpaid action, we want to use to its maximum effect, almost certainly if we can combine it with other unions, because it has a massive impact itself. So I hope what people are getting from that is we're conscious of the financial position of our members. We think the most pressure we can build is sustained action on things that will cause an immediate effect, and all member action when it's done with others to have a massive political effect, the effect almost of a generalized strike where you could see millions on strike like we saw when we took action on pensions. So I hope that reassures people, Fran. But what I would say is if anyone didn't vote because they thought they couldn't afford it, the effect of that would be we couldn't take any action at all and we would remain in this dreadful position. That's why we need everyone to vote yes and be assured by us we will be raising money, paying strike pay to those on sustained action and seeking to minimize the loss for everybody else. And the final question of Suzanne asked about how many days. Well, obviously, what we can see is lots of disputes take different forms. So the RMT have had 8 days of strike action. The postal workers, I think now have had 3 or 4. What we're going to do is get the mandates first, check where we've got yes votes over the ballot, and then we will be rolling out a strategy designed to maximize the impact. I don't think there's a dispute that's going to be won in a week. I think it may take us a while to build the pressure we want on the government. And in many ways, because of Christmas, may well be something that goes into the new year. But what we're saying here is that doesn't mean we're asking people to commit to 10, 15, 20 days of strike action. It will be a strategy that I have set out there. And that's what we hope people can see. And I think the most important thing to stress is what this isn't, is what we've done in days gone by, where you've seen big one-day strikes and people have said to us, well, that was good, but it didn't have enough effect. We will not be doing that this time around. This will be action designed to win, financially supported where we need to, and combining our action, unpaid action, with other unions to put the government under pressure. So I hope that deals with the questions from Kevin and Suzanne, Fran.
It does, Mark. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got another list of solidarity shout-outs. Solidarity to all from Mohammed Shafiq. Solidarity from DWP's Valley, that's Dylan Wilson. Solidarity from Edinburgh Loading and Borders. It is crucial that we smash through the 50% threshold, and that's from Steve West. Solidarity from DWP TAF, Death Star, New Branch, Sammy Mulcahy. Solidarity from DWP Durham Branch, Grace Bellaby. And solidarity from DWP Devon Branch, Jerry Crowley. Solidarity from all at Jarrow Job Centre. I've got customers ringing up in absolute poverty, crying on the phone. All I can offer is a food bank referral or an advance that will worsen their reaction. worse than their debt. I'll be voting for action, and that's from Derek. That's part of my branch, so thank you for that, Derek. And it just brings it home, doesn't it, that the situation that people have been placed in because of the choices that this government are making. Okay, I'm going to move on then. The next batch of questions, I'm fine. They're quite concerning, and I want to make sure we do them justice. So I'm going to read them out. I'm going to invite Martin to comment, and then Mark, if there's anything you would like to add, because we don't want anybody to feel isolated during this campaign. This is about all of us working together to make sure we have the strongest possible response, both within this group and the union as a whole. So I'm going to read these out in a batch, and I think it's probably worth getting comments from both of you. So Marie Conlon says, at our office, we've had absolutely no union interaction regarding the upcoming strike. Gail from Chesterfield says, our branch doesn't have a rep. And there is another one, which I'm just going to find. Now, this is from Debbie in Scarborough. And Debbie says, as a union rep from an office due for closure, we feel very isolated from senior PCS members. No advice or help has been given to us. We are fighting by ourselves. I'm aware, Debbie, that a number of full-time officers did visit your branch in the last couple of weeks. So it's not the case that you haven't had any support, but I think if any of you feel, that you're not getting enough help and support, or there's something you could do where you need a bit of support, then do get in touch with any of us. You can email me, you can email Martin, you can email the group, and we will make sure that somebody's put in touch to help you. But I'm going to bring Martin in to comment on that, because I know as a group, Martin's making huge efforts to try to ensure that every branch is getting the support that they need. So over to you, Martin.
Yeah, cheers, Fran. And I mean, I agree with you. I think there's some of those contributions that are concerning, because we are trying to go out of our way as a group and a GC to make sure that both in terms of this ballot, but also our response to the office closures, that support is there and given. I will just touch on them. In terms of Marie's point about the no interaction in the ballot, that is really concerning, Marie. And what I would say is this, that we have issued a number of direct mailings out in the past few weeks, and again today, around the importance of the ballot, why we are specifically asking members in DWP to vote yes in this ballot, and articulating the message as to why we need to be taking such an active part. You'll notice on that briefing that hopefully you will have received that there is a contact details and email addresses there. But if not, if for whatever reason you can't either find that briefing, then what I would urge you to do is to email dwp@pcs.org.uk. Give the details of your office and your site as to the lack of activity. And I can assure you that we will pick that up first thing tomorrow, that we will look to make sure that we get GC support for your branch if the branch needs that support. And we will provide GC speakers for any meetings, as we have done for dozens and dozens of members' meetings over the past few weeks. You should not be left out. You should very much be part and parcel of this. And what's particularly concerning about that is that we have been quite fortunate in many respects, and that we as a GC have negotiated with DWP for an hour's time to be given to discuss this year's pay award. Now, whilst that won't go into the detail necessarily that we can give on here tonight, in terms of the strike and the ballot, etc., it does very much allow us to talk about this year's pay award, where that sits with the cost of living crisis, and why it is so important for our members to respond. So if that hasn't happened, make contact with that email address that I've just given out there. I think it's been put in the chat facility as well, and we will get a GC presence and speaker there to speak to you and the colleagues in the site and in the branch. Again, similar to Gail in terms of no rep in the branch. Again, if you can drop us a line, because this cannot be won and we cannot be successful by smashing through the 50% barrier if either members or individual reps, for that matter, feel isolated and don't feel that they are getting the support. In terms of Debbie's point about Doncaster, I'm worried, very, very worried about that, Debbie, in terms of you feel there's a lack of support from the group about the office closure. because I know that a number of contacts have been made from our union group with the branch. And indeed, we've sent people to the branch to speak to members, to help with the lobbying that you've been doing there, etc. But a commitment I will give to you and every other office that is earmarked for closure, and there's over 50 currently in DWP, that we want to fight every single one of them. None of them are justified. Every single one of them goes hand in hand with these wider attacks and cuts to our members' jobs across the civil service. And every single one of them is based on an ideological and a strategic assault that DWP itself is imposing upon our workforce. We know that we can't possibly have that many office closures without risk of redundancy. So we want to fight every single one of them. And I will give an assurance on behalf of the GC that whether it's Doncaster, whether it's Hanley, whether it's the Toxteth Job Centre in Liverpool, whether it's Barrow in the IIDB, whether it's Gravesend in Kent, whichever office it is, if there is a mood for action, we as a GC will back that mood for action. And if there's any other support in terms of campaigning activity with community groups, with local politicians, etc., we will very, very much be aiming to do that, and not only supporting you with it, but leading from the front. So I am worried, and I'm sorry if you feel, Debbie, that support hasn't been there thus far. I have a different perspective in terms of what I know the activity through group we've been doing with all the officers, including with Doncaster. But that said, if we need to do more, we are fully committed to doing more, and now is the time to do it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Mark, anything from you in terms of that? Anybody who feels a little bit isolated right now? You're off mute.
Yeah, no, I think obviously the devil's in the detail there, and Martin's undertaken to pick those up, and we do need to hear from people. It's only just to reiterate that key point, that every single person who doesn't send a ballot back for whatever reason, including if they feel isolated or don't know about it, makes it harder to get over the 50%. So it's good that we know about these places now, and obviously we just heard about Chesterfield, Scarborough, and hopefully people will contact us and we can get somebody in to help as soon as possible.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Miguel says the AOs have the hardest job and get paid the worst. And Maureen from Social Security Scotland says, we're in a rare position of having an extremely strong bargaining position right now. We have to capitalise on that. We may not get this chance again. Vote for strike action. So again, really helpful, really good comments. Thank you. Okay, Rich Brown says, as a G4S security officer working to provide support for the DWP, I would like to know how much of this support will also be extended to security teams who assist in day-to-day DWP life. And of course, we all know that our security teams are not employed by DWP, but work under the DWP contract. Mark, I don't know if you want to comment more generally on those workers who provide support services to the DWP and may not be direct DWP employees, in terms of what they may be able to do and what support they can expect.
Yeah, and just also to say how much I agree with Maureen. I'm glad Maureen's made that point. I mean, we're in a desperate situation because of the cost of living crisis, but industrially we are in a strong position if we win the ballot. And the government is likely to face one of the biggest waves of industrial action we will have seen in years in this country. It's a new Prime Minister, and they need public service workers to deliver services. So if we're in a position to threaten to disrupt that, we are in a strong place. On the point about G4S, I mean, again, there may be a DWP perspective that Martin wants to comment on. But in general terms, can I just make this point that when we announced the ballots in the 216 areas that are essentially covered by the civil service pay remit and the civil service pension scheme, so they're not all core civil service, some of them are in related public bodies, we also made it clear to reps across the union that where people fell outside that, work for private companies or other bodies, that we would be wanting to, where members felt the need, to also seek if we could have some simultaneous disputes or raise campaigns elsewhere. And so clearly, if people are in different employers and the conditions allow, we are able to see whether or not the conditions exist to also trigger separate disputes with those employers themselves. Now, obviously, G4S workers in a DWP is complicated by the contract and the role of other unions. But what I would urge is that on the specifics of this contract, that we look at that from a DWP perspective to see what there is that we can be doing. But from a G4S perspective, if we do have members in G4S and DWP or elsewhere, and there are concerns with the employer that we think now is a good time to be arguing around or campaigning around, then the union will be very supportive of doing that. So that's a general point in terms of private companies and different organisations. I don't know if Martin wants to add anything specific about those workers in DWP as well, Fran.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Shall we go to you next, Martin? Yeah. Oh, can we unmute Martin, please? Thank you. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, just really to follow on from what Mark said, I mean, one of the tricks and difficulties that we've got in DWP, of course, is that our G4S security guards aren't recognised, or we don't have recognition agreement for them. So whilst we have a large number that are indeed PCS members, and we do provide support and active support for them in the sort of their working lives and with their working conditions and personal case representation, we actually don't have collective bargaining rights at the moment. That's been for years, as long as I can remember, a real source of frustration, because we understand that if we were able to take action, we get the mandate from our own members. One of the easiest ways to shut down, especially front-facing workplaces and offices, is to also bring the security guards out with us. But what I would say is that I would urge Richard and other G4S guards who might be on this call tonight to actually speak to your colleagues to significantly increase the number of G4S members within PCS. I mean, clearly GMB are the union with a recognition agreement, but where a large number of G4S guards we know are not members of any trade union whatsoever. And we have a legitimate aim and a legitimate right to ask those to join the union and to collectivise in terms of our support for you. We're fully committed to doing that through the union and through the group. We always have been. That the numbers make it more difficult. And indeed, the fact we don't have recognition makes it more difficult. But I just want to echo the point that Mark's made, that whatever support is required and needed, then we as a union and at group level are fully committed to delivering that support. But it's not a simple issue to deal with, and it's been a long-standing problem. But one of the ways to actually start addressing that problem is to increase our PCS membership within the G4S community in terms of the DWP contract.
Okay, thanks so much, Martin. Martin, we're going to stay with you, and Pete Rofe has got a couple of questions which are pretty DWP specific, which I think you probably want to pick up. So firstly, how will we deal with hybrid working as part of any action within the DWP group? And then secondly, Pete also asks, will members being made redundant in January be supported with strike pay if action is called in their area and across the group? So do you want to comment on that, Martin? And then obviously, if there's anything else, we can come back to it.
Yeah, no problem, Fran. And good evening, Pete. I mean, in terms of the issue about hybrid working, then clearly that is a challenge that in our group, as well as other union groups, it's one that we've never had to sort of jostle with in previous industrial disputes and industrial campaigns. What I would say, though, is this, that we, in terms of the ballot itself, then we have addressed members' meetings that have been much, much larger online, so events such as this, during the ballot, to get our message out, to make sure that members understood the importance of our campaigning activity. So in terms of the ballot itself, then I am confident, and we as a GC are confident, that hybrid working itself should not be an unsurmountable obstacle to us delivering the actual vote and the turnout. When it comes to action, I think this is something that, it is going to be a test for us. And, because the obvious thing is normally you would have a day of action, you have a picket line outside a building. If people have not crossed the picket line, then you assume that they're on strike. And that isn't necessarily the case with hybrid working. But I can tell you this, there's also going to be an issue that the employer's going to have to jostle with as well, because they'll need to ensure and have a good feel for who is on strike. So if they can, because otherwise they could be guilty of taking unlawful deductions out of salaries, for example. So it's not an easy solution for us. But what I would say is this, that I have every confidence that our members will give us a mandate and understand the seriousness of the situation. And so if we do call on them to take industrial action, whether it's be on a day when they should normally physically be in a workplace or work from home, that they will take part in that action and they will deliver that industrial action, because that is what will give us the leverage to defeat the employer. In terms of the redundancy and those who are likely to be made redundant, take voluntary redundancy beforehand, I mean, will that therefore people be called out on strike, and will strike pay be offered? I think that is a discussion to be had, not least with the members in all of those sites and locations. And Pete, yours being one of them in Hanley. But what I would say is this, that right now we have been seeking a written agreement from the department and the Cabinet Office that they will at least honour the current terms of redundancy for those staff already facing redundancy in DWP. And they won't give us that commitment in writing. They won't give us that commitment in writing because they've said to us in negotiations that they can't guarantee that by the time the first member staff leaves, the new scheme will have won't have taken effect and won't be in if they impose it upon us. So I would say this, that every single member who is currently facing the risk of redundancy in DWP, it is equally as important, even if you've already made your mind up that you are likely to want to take the voluntary redundancy and go sooner rather than later. The only way that we can guarantee through negotiation you get what you deserved is by you giving us a mandate. And the only way we can continue to hopefully actually keep you in a meaningful employment, preferably with the Department for Work and Pensions, by stopping the office closures, is by you giving us this mandate. It's not going to be done through negotiation. It's not going to be done through DWP waking up tomorrow and growing a heart. It's going to be done through action, and it's going to be done with us taking that strong response. So I hope that answers the two questions, Fran.
Okay, it does. Thank you, Martin. There is a comment rather than a question here from David in Falkirk, who says, DWP's goal is to automate the services and systems as much as possible. So the longer they drag out these scenarios, the easier it is for them to implement redundancies due to less staff being needed. So I think that's probably more of a comment. But there are a number of messages, a number of solidarity messages, including one which I think is going to be helpful to the person who said there wasn't a rep at Chesterfield. So firstly, shout out to Matthew Meachin, the Doncaster PCS rep, who's been amazing in our campaign, Stop Our Office Closure, for us and for Chesterfield, and that's from Sharon Thornton. And then Faye Crate goes on to say, members at Chesterfield, a pay meeting is being arranged for you, plus a further meeting about your office closures. So hopefully those are useful updates. There are some more solidarity greetings from all at Forth Valley branch. Let's smash the threshold together. Solidarity from Highlands, Islands and Grampian, that's Vivian McLean. And solidarity from Coventry and Warwickshire branch, and that's John Ainsley. So have I missed any? No. There is another comment that I think, Mark, you might want to pick up. Just bear with me. I'm trying to do these messages on my phone, which is very small. So I'm trying to find the messages as they come through. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so Sarah Kinnett says, do you have to be a PCS member to vote? Some members say they have no faith in the union, so they won't join. Well, you might want to pick that up, Mark. But also, it's not similar lines, but it is a question I think that you'll want to pick up, and I think it's quite an important one to answer. Why was it that the union paid DVLA members to strike if they won't pay us now? So, Mark, do you want to pick up those two? They're not related, but
that's fine. And I also, if you don't mind, very quickly, I just want to say something about the questions Martin answered.
Yeah.
I very much agree with Martin. I just want to add these 2 points. When people are working from home on a strike day, and notwithstanding all the logistics and everything else, what we need to remember is if the union is called a strike, anyone who is working anywhere on that day is assisting the management and undermining the strike. And I think it's important to make that point. And we know there will be a propaganda battle when the strikes begin. The Cabinet Office will always tell everyone there's hardly anyone on strike and everyone's working. So even if you're at home, and obviously you're not in an office and you're not on a picket line, the part of participating in the strike and doing no work is critically important. And also on the members facing redundancy point, Martin's bang on, right? Just make this additional point. If members facing redundancy don't vote, then that makes it harder for us to get to the 50%. And therefore, those members have been notified to the employer as members of PCS and getting ballots. So them not returning those ballots is undermining everything else. Now, I don't want this to be misconstrued, but I just want to make the point. At this point, there are two separate questions. One is, are you voting to strike and giving us a mandate? The second question will then be, when those strikes are called, what that means for people in different places in terms of what the action is and what we're calling. We don't even get to the second point if we haven't got over the mandate. So if you are decided you're going, if you are thinking you're taking redundancy, it is still critical you vote in this ballot. Even from a perspective of thinking about the effect you're not voting has on your colleagues who will be left behind, who may not be able to take action because we haven't reached the threshold. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. On Sarah's question, the answer is yes, you cannot vote in this ballot if you're not a PCS member. So non-members cannot vote, but what they can do is join the union and vote. And of course, that's what we would urge them to do. The union is notifying the employer who our members are that we're balloting and calling on to strike. So, so anyone who in the past has thought, I'm not joining the union because it's not doing much, what an opportunity to say, well, now we are trying to do something about the cost of living crisis, your pension, your redundancy pay and jobs. So non-members can join PCS now, and non-members would be able to participate in our campaign moving forward. If we're taking strike action, we'd urge them to do that. And on the point about the DVLA, so the DVLA was a local dispute, and the union pays strike pay for local disputes in the same way as any members in DWP are called upon to take strike action in a targeted, sustained effort, we will pay strike pay. What the union has never done, and I repeat the point, I can't think of any union that has done it, is pay strike pay when everybody is out on strike. Just because if you think about that, if there's 150,000 members and we were to pay everybody strike pay, then clearly the union does not have the income in order to sustain that, and the employer knows it. So strikes have generally been unpaid, and that's the case in most unions. But where we're asking some to bear the brunt on behalf of everybody else, there will be financial support. And if that's what we ask you in DWP to do, so let's say you work in a critical part of DWP and your reps tell us action here could have an incredible effect, and we ask people to come out for a sustained basis, they would get the same financial support that has been paid in the past. And I think it's an important point to stress.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Ross Crooks says, my site opened a year ago and there's been no union representation or presentations for new staff. If you want to increase membership, would it not be a good idea to offer presentation and info to new employees? Absolutely, Ross. So if you email dwp@pcs.org.uk and tell us where your site is that opened in the last year, we will make sure we put you in touch with your branch in order to be able to do that. So I think that's important. And Dan Simkis said, we need unity in action now more than ever. Walsall union reps have been fantastic in keeping us all up to date. Solidarity from Walsall. So thanks very much for that, Dan. It's good to hear. Somebody here asks, I'm conscious of the time, so these will be the last few, I suppose. But I will, after we've taken all the questions, bring both Martin and Mark in to sum up. But we'll see if we can get a few more answered. Are managers allowed to ask you if you're taking strike action? And that's anonymous. I mean, I'll answer that from the chair. They're allowed to ask. You don't have to tell them. And you can say that you haven't made up your mind yet if you would prefer to, or you could just say that you don't, you're not in a position to comment, or you don't know. And Stephen Wood makes a really good point. He says, just to say, much as the yes vote is important, I'm working on encouraging everybody just to vote, whether yes or no. We got 97% yes on the last ballot. And if we have had more people vote, even if every extra vote had been a no, we could have smashed the threshold. We're still over 90% yes. Stephen, that's an excellent point. And, you know, I won't labour it, but when we took action in the DVLA that Mark's just talked about, it was no votes actually that helps us to beat the threshold. So the most important thing is that people cast their votes. Obviously, we want them to support the union. Obviously, we want them to vote yes. But most important of all is that they have their say and vote at all. Lisa says, shocking health and safety breaches going on. They're prepared for us to crash and burn and not shed a tear. We have to stand against them. So thank you, Lisa. So let me just see if we've missed anything that we need to pick up. Right, there is one question here that I think, Mark, you will probably want to answer, and I think probably David, Mark will be able to set your mind at rest. So David Lamb says, are these proposed all-out unpaid strikes likely to occur in the month which will affect members' salaries in November, which is our last payday before Christmas? So clearly, you know, we have to look at where we beat the threshold, but I'll hand over to Mark to comment on that one.
Okay, and shall I just say a couple of things about the other comments that you read?
Yeah, if you can, that'd be
so I just wanted to say to Ross about no union where he works. I know you picked that up, but again, give us the details. Martin's given a really great assurance tonight that we want to come out and we want to come and help. Unity in action from Dan, absolutely couldn't agree more. And on Lisa's point about shocking health and safety breaches, we've got to stand firm. I'm glad Lisa's made that point, because one of the things about the way we're balloting this time round is that it's a national campaign and a national dispute, but by breaking it down by employer, the whole world will see how DWP has voted. And therefore, if you smash the threshold, it doesn't just mean we can call action on the question of your job security and your pay. Your management will actually see that the union in DWP is now able to beat the thresholds. And that increases the leverage that your negotiators have on a whole manner of things, because it changes the balance of power between the union and the management. That's the truth. And therefore, the significance of winning here is about this campaign, of course, first and foremost, but it also does allow us to, I think, have more clout with them at the related matters, Lisa, including health and safety breaches and things that you mentioned. I mean, you dealt with the question, can management ask you going on strike? I mean, I'll tell you, if somebody asked me that question, I'd turn around and say, how did you vote in the general election? I mean, it's none of your business. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the union organising a collective ballot as a trade union, and that is a confidential matter. And so, as Fran has said, they can ask, but you should decide, you know, how you wish to answer. But you're under no obligation to answer that. And in fact, you could well argue, why are they asking? They're asking for two reasons: either a form of intimidation, the idea that they're asking because they want to know what you're doing to make you feel uneasy, or they're asking because they want to start planning what they're going to do if you're on strike. My instinct here is the less we cooperate with them on everything we can at the minute, the better. And certainly we don't want to be helping them make contingency plans. On David's question, which is the key one, but we're all very conscious the ballot result will come out on the 7th of November, 8th of November, and the NEC, I think, meets on the 9th of November. We have to give a minimum of 14 days notice under the law of any industrial action. We are very conscious of Christmas and of the way the pay cycle falls. And as I have repeatedly stressed tonight, that the key to winning is action that really hits them hard, supported by all members taking action, preferably with other unions in the frame. So whilst we have to wait and see who's got over the line, where we are strong, we will certainly be taking on board the idea of members' concerns about Christmas, and certainly any action that we call before Christmas that is sustained would be financially supported. So I hope that gives somebody an idea there that, you know, I think the only way that we would really be wanting to call all member action that would affect Christmas pay packets would be if unions elsewhere were all saying everybody was taking action together, and there could be parts of a million people, and we would not want to be outside of that. So, you know, we be very conscious, David, of the financial pressures on people in doing what we're doing. And the assurance I would want to give is the NEC, you know, the NEC are made up of people who work for civil service. So, you know, all our NEC members will be on strike themselves, and they are very conscious of the pressures that members take. So rest assured, whatever action we call will be because we believe that is a critical thing to do to help win. It won't be for any other reasons than we judge that is the way to win. And knowing the position members are in will be very much at the forefront of our minds. So I hope that gives David some really reassurance, Fran.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, Martin, one for you here. It's not strictly about the campaign, but I do think it's one you probably want to pick up. Marie asks, we've been told we're not allowed to come into the office unless a desk is available. I want to know how that is legal to be told you cannot work from your own actual workplace. And I know, Martin, you're in sort of constant dialogue with the DWP as an employer. So do you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem that DWP are going to increasingly be getting themselves into a problem with if their office closure program goes ahead. Because you're quite right, Marie, that if you're contracted to work the department, you have a home office base, and you have a legal entitlement to work from that home office base for the entirety of your contract. Now, what I would say is if there are specific issues in terms of accommodation space and desk availability, then you should immediately contact your local representatives, because that should be challenged locally. If we are in a situation where we do not have sufficient space in DWP offices for the staff who should and need to work there and provide that office space, then that needs to be challenged immediately, not waited until the next rotation or whatever. That needs to be challenged immediately. So I would urge you to contact your local rep. That should be challenged through your local employer. And equally, if the reps are here tonight, if you get no joy locally, then immediately escalate that up to group, and we will challenge that on behalf. Because you're right, Fran, we're in weekly, discussions with the department currently around a whole host of things, not least the accommodation, especially the accommodation post the office closures, if they indeed get their way and they go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Couple for you, Mark. A problem we have as civil servants is public support. I think the public see civil servants as just those who work in Whitehall. They don't see the ordinary people like myself working in contact centres throughout the pandemic, taking on extra caseloads on very low wages. That's from Bonnie. And along the same lines is a question from, if I can find it. Line is too many questions, too many. Just give me a second. There was something else. Oh, yes. So David says, with all due respect, why, after winning in court on the pension scenario, has this not been sorted out yet by the union after all this time? So if you want to pick up those two, Mark, that'd be good.
Yes. So to pick up David's point first, because we won in court to show that the government changes to pensions were illegal. The government has accepted that, and the government is now putting that right. But the court didn't tell the government that they had to pick up the bill. And therefore, what the government is now doing outrageously is making the victims of their illegality pay the bill. So that is why we're going back to court. And we have a high court date where we are leading a legal challenge with 6 other unions to force them to pick up the tab. So the reason we haven't sorted it out is because we've got a Conservative government that, to be honest, hates the public sector in many ways and wants the public sector to pay the price of the things that it does wrong. So it's in the ballot because we're going back to court, but actually what we want them to do is to give us back the money that they've taken off us, backdated to April 2019. So David, the reality is that's the answer. We won in court, and then the government just refused, they implemented the decision, refused to pay, and that's why we're going back again to court. On Bonnie's point, I'm glad Bonnie's made the point. I mean, I think the public mood has changed, Bonnie, I'll be honest. I think the public do believe the RMT strikes have shown that in the past, where the government very successfully could whip up animosity to people going on strike through the newspapers and stuff, they're finding that harder, even though they're trying very hard with the Daily Mail and everyone else. And that's because I think most people are experiencing a cost of living crisis, the energy hikes, and most opinion polls have the popularity of strikes at levels that we've never seen before. Now, sometimes that's only 50% support, but that is higher than it's ever been. And that's, I think, because most people instinctively know that this is wrong. So the RMT have obviously played a blinder. Mick Lynch has been doing some fantastic media. But the truth is that what the RMT are doing is being able to use the media because they're reporting strikes. I believe the exact same thing happened with us. The minute we win the ballots and the media realize we can have strikes, not just talk about them, we will be all over the media as well. And we will take those opportunities with colleagues from PCS and people to get our case across. And I can tell you that in every media interview we do, we highlight the fact that we have members who claim the benefits that they administer. We have members using food banks. We are not bowler-hatted mandarins. We at Sir Humphreys, we are low-paid, often workers in the front line. Majority, not in white, all overwhelmingly are out in the towns and cities and villages of the UK. So Bonnie, we will make that point. And personally, I think we will get more support. And the DVLA strike's quite an interesting recent example where the DVLA strike had a huge effect on the public. The government tried to turn the public against us, and we did get lots of people who were moaning, but we actually got massive amount of support where people actually said, we think you're right to have the right to work in a safe workplace. So we're going to work on it and we will have a media strategy, but I do think the mood has shifted, and I think we'll see that if we take action.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, Martin, before I bring both you and Mark in for sort of closing remarks, and Al-Sayed asks, is strike action actually going to make any difference? I've been on a strike before with both the DWP and the MOJ. A small handful of us took action and it made no difference. So would you like to comment on that, Martin?
Yeah, certainly it will, Fran. I mean, thanks for the question, but I actually have a very different experience of my time working in DWP. I've worked in this department in its various guises for over 30 years. And what I've always seen on days when our members in DWP have taken action is overwhelming support from our members and a very real impact on the departmental services, on the department itself. What, as Mark outlined earlier, though, that this is a very different strategy and a very different look that we're having in terms of our industrial action strategy. This is not about protest action. It's not about taking 1 or 2 days where the employer can just ride through it and then pick up the pieces when we get back into work. This is a different approach that we are taking as a union. But I would ask you to consider this, that if the department genuinely did not believe that our members withdrawing their labour couldn't have an impact, over the last decade, they would have got rid of every single AA who worked in DWP. They would have got rid of a whole host of other staff in the last year and a bit when fixed-term appointments were coming to an end in their thousands. Instead of recruiting them, they would have, without any question, have already closed a number of the offices down that still remain open as a result of our campaign and activity. All of that was achieved through us putting pressure on and with us being able to take on the fight to the department. So I would urge everyone on the call tonight not to see this as we don't really make much difference. Even if we do withdraw our labour, what impact does it have? The government cannot provide and the department cannot provide essential public services without every single one of us being in work to do that job. We have a devastating impact on those services and on the government. Our task will be this time round, first of all, smash through that threshold, but then when we do, work out which particular parts of the organisation we can take out for sustained periods that will allow us to hit the department and the government hardest. That will have a huge impact on DWP and on the Tory government. You should never underestimate the power that you have.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. This is more of a comment, but it just highlights why we need to get somebody to be a rep at the Chesterfield office. If we don't have one, it's an anonymous message that says something very worrying is happening at the moment. We have a big change happening at the end of the month that means we will suddenly have to see thousands more claimants as the threshold for light touch is being increased. We're already seeing approximately 250 people on our caseloads in Chesterfield. With the weekly fortnightly regime, this is likely to be impossible. So if ever there was a need for somebody to get involved and become a rep, that's probably it. So no doubt members who have joined the call tonight who are from Chesterfield, when you have your pay meeting, when you have your office closure meeting, that all the meetings that have been planned, make sure you have a discussion about how we're going to make sure we keep in touch with you and how the branch is going to work with you in terms of representation. So can I just remind everybody that new members have to be on the system by 5 p.m. on Monday the 17th of October in order to get a vote. So anybody you recruit now to take part in the ballot, that must be on the system by 5 p.m. on the 17th of October. So it's important just to remember that. Okay, in no particular order, should we, if we start with you, Martin, is there anything you want to say in closing, anything that you feel it's important to get across before we close tonight?
Yeah, cheers, Fran. Just a 2 or 3 things really from me. First of all, I want to reiterate what I said earlier on, that I really do appreciate and thank everyone for giving up their time tonight to attend what I do believe is a really important event for our union and for our group. And we are in the midst of a campaign and about to start on a ballot that will, without any question, dictate where we go as a union, where we go as a group in the next few weeks. And I have every confidence that our members get it, they understand the importance of it, and they understand that if we don't fight now, then it begs the question, when are we going to? With the conditions that our members are facing, whether it's on pay, job security, pensions, or all the other issues that are being flagged up by comrades tonight, if we can't muster our fight back now, when are we going to do it? But I would put it into this context, really. Yeah, and I know a lot of the comments were made earlier on about we can't afford to strike, we can't afford to give up a day's pay. We've outlined that hopefully tonight clearly, that this is not as simple as us just doing protest action where you lose a day's pay with no impact. This is about sustained action. This is about targeted action. And this is, where appropriate, about us providing that financial support. I am fully committed on behalf of the GC to identify those areas along with my GC comrades and make sure that we take part in that dispute when we beat through the threshold. But it is all a moot point if we don't beat through the threshold. And I would really say this to everyone who's thinking affordability outweighs their desire to take on the government and our department. And I'd put it like this, that I mentioned earlier on about what impact our withdrawing our labour can have. And I want to take you back to, just shortly after Fran, actually, as my predecessor became group president, and we saved and withdrew the threat of redundancies for every single AA in DWP without a single day's action being taken because we were given a mandate by our members. I want to take you back to the pandemic, in the very first summer of the pandemic, when DWP were trying to force our members back into the workplace for face-to-face services, but also in back of office services. And overnight, we stopped that mass return to workplace because in a consultative ballot, you gave us your mandate. We also achieved work coach autonomy for you to decide who you could and couldn't see for months during some of the most dangerous periods of that pandemic because you gave us the mandate. Not a single day's action was taken, but you showed your willingness to take action. You showed how strong you were and how determined you were. And in the face of that, the department backed down. I have no doubt whatsoever that the point Mark made earlier on, that if we get through and smash through this barrier, if you give us that mandate, I'll give you a commitment, but nothing will happen, certainly between now and next May, as long as I'm group president, when we do not force that mandate down the management's throat at every single opportunity once you've given us it. Whether it's on safety issues, whether it's on staffing issues, whether it's on the workplace and whether it's on terms and conditions, as well as the big 4 national demands that we have got in as part of this ballot. And I do want you all to think on, go back 18 months, 2 years, and don't buy this rhetoric that somehow we're not popular. The pandemic, if it's one thing it taught us this. The big business and the senior politicians aren't the people who kept this country going. They are not the people who were absolutely needed when push came to shove. Workers like you were. Workers providing vital service with record amounts of benefits. The public saw that then. The public will see it again. And Mark is spot on. But when we do smash through this threshold, When we can deliver and threaten to deliver industrial action, the media attention will turn to us as government employees, as government workers, and we will be able to have the same ability to try and turn the public narrative if that is what is required. But you have an opportunity. We have great hope. We still have what I believe to be a weak and divided government with a new Prime Minister that didn't exactly get a ringing endorsement in a recent election. We need to push home our advantage, show that we're strong, and be prepared alongside other workers in every single sector of this country to say, we've had enough, we are fighting back, and if you don't listen, we will take action. Thanks, Fran.
Thank you very much, Martin. And over to you, Mark. Can we get Mark off mute, please? That's it.
Thanks very much. I won't keep people. It's obviously late, Fran. I just wanted to just say this, that this has been a really good event. We've had hundreds and hundreds of people on, and we've had a lot of detailed questions, and that's really great. But what we haven't perhaps said enough yet is that in the run-up to the ballot, people have joined PCS. We now have more members as a union than we've had for quite a few years. We have had hundreds of people come forward to get active in the union and to become advocates or to become reps. We've had more and more people give us their personal details and information and contact the union. And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who has contributed to make that happen. And it is a sign that people are joining the union because people can see we are in the most drastic situation that we ever have had. So for every comment we've had tonight about people feeling isolated, they don't have a rep, our task has to be to get in touch with you and try and come and do a meeting or get in touch. But there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of places where actually we've got reps and we've got members joining and people are preparing for the ballot. So the big picture looks very positive, but we don't underestimate the challenges. And I think, as every person has raised tonight, the way the government has constructed the laws is that we could get a 100% vote for strike action, but if we do not get the legal threshold of 50% participating, then we are not going to be able to take any action at all. So the person who made the point that voting no is better than not voting is absolutely right. We have to get 50%. We haven't done that before in DWP, in recent consultative ballots, and that's the challenge that we face. Now, we know that the employer is very concerned that if we do get over the threshold, the action we can take could be incredibly powerful. We know that because we've seen the leaked minutes of their meetings. So what they are banking on is we do not get over that threshold. So the real key thing for me tonight is, if you know you deserve more pay, you want job security, you want your redundancy package to be maintained, and you want the employer to realise that the union is not going to put up with all the things that happen in DWP that are not part of this ballot, now's the time to show them. Because I want to be clear that for every place we win the mandate, we are strong and we can win. In every place we do not get over the threshold, the employer will think we're weak, and they will take the opportunity to go for it. And DWP don't usually need inviting to go on the front foot and make people's lives difficult. So they are worried, but they also realize that the stakes are very, very high. So what that means for us is getting over the threshold is the absolute top priority, and getting a huge yes vote. What we're assuring you of is, having got that, we will go back to them straight away. On the very day the NEC meets, we will be writing to them, I'm pretty sure, to saying, right, are you now prepared to have a meaningful conversation? In the event that they're not, the action that we will then plan, call and take will demonstrate to them the value of our members. And I'm just going to finish with this. They think you're worth a 10% cut in living standards. They need to realise that if someone wants a passport, it is our member who does it for them. If somebody wants a driving test, it is our members who do it for them. If somebody wants to get through the port of Dover, it is our members that lets them through. If somebody needs support from the benefit system, you deliver it for them. When they need taxes collecting and the minimum wage overseeing, we do it for them. And on and on and on it goes. And Martin was right to point out, Fran, that in PCS in the last year, we are winning disputes. We are winning disputes with private contractors, with arm's length bodies where members have taken action, and they realise without PCS members, they can't do things. So what this is about is not, are we powerful, is not, can we force their hand, it is, can we break the legal stranglehold that they hope will stop us by not getting the 50%. If we do, we absolutely can win and we can make them see our worth. But if we don't, it will be a winter like no other. It will be a winter where you will get your 2%. It will be a winter where they will cut 1 in 5 jobs, cut the redundancy scheme and rob you of your pension and probably go on to do even more. So the stakes are high. Let's make sure that we show them our worth. And I am confident more than in any recent ballot that we can from the feedback we're getting from members. So what I'm asking finally people to do tonight is, if you've been on a call, tomorrow, talk to somebody about what we've done. Show them the recording of this meeting that will be available on Facebook. Reassure them that we want to call action that can win. Reassure them that we believe we have the power to win and we understand the financial precarity that many of our members are in. But most of all, remind them of their worth, of the vital service they provide, and the fact that if we don't fight back now, we will continue to be treated in an appalling way. That's what's at stake, Fran. And that's why on a practical level, ballot papers will go out from Monday. If you have not received a ballot paper by the end of the first week, don't just sit there, contact the union to make sure that we can get ballot papers out. If you haven't got a ballot paper, you can't vote. If you can't vote, it's one of the percentages that stop us getting to the threshold. If you want a workplace meeting, go to the DWP group or contact us, and you want a speaker, we provide you with a speaker. If you want to organise a virtual meeting with a Zoom license, we will do that for you. Now's the time more than ever before for everyone to do a bit. And if we all do a bit, we can not just win the ballot, but we can win the dispute. So good luck, everybody. Let's make sure DWP smashes the threshold, and let's make sure we win you a proper pay rise, job security, decent terms and conditions, and in the longer term, a management that treats you with the respect that you deserve, not the management that treats you in the way they currently do.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. And there's some lovely thank you messages coming through. I'm just going to read Bernadette's out. It just says, I'm really invigorated tonight. Thank you to all. I love the enthusiasm. So that's a good note to finish on, isn't it? And if we all have that enthusiasm for the next 6 weeks, we don't just beat the threshold, we'll smash it. And I'm confident that there are so many good members and reps in this group. We are absolutely capable of doing it, and it's in our hands now, isn't it? Okay, thank you to everybody who's joined us, because I realise that people have had a long day and you've joined this in your own time, but hopefully it's been useful. Hopefully it's answered some of your questions. If you remain having questions, get in touch with us. We'll make sure we answer. If you're worried about support, get in touch with us. We'll do all we can to help. And finally, I want to say a massive thank you to our sign language interpreter, Richard Law. Richard does a fantastic job. Mark, myself, Martin, we all sometimes speak fast. We also sometimes speak passionately, and Richard keeps up with all of us. So really big thanks to you, Richard. Thanks to everybody who's joined. If anybody wants to, there is a national Facebook Live on Monday night. It's been advertised, it'll be on the website, it's been advertised everywhere. And Mark and myself are doing that live from the Labour Party conference, where we'll be going to take our message to as many MPs as possible in terms of the support that we want for our issues and for our campaign. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch with us all and take care and good night. Thank you.